Welcome, my friends, to the Zika virus swamps. It's the children of the old ones versus the barbarians of the north, as the Lizardmen and the Dark Gods renew their millennia-old rivalry. We got Falcon and King of the Dead punching each other in the mouth for the 400th time. I have no idea how many games they played against each other over the last couple of years, but it's been a hell of a lot. They're both exceptionally good at the races they've chosen today, so should be a treat no matter what happens. Let's see who draws first blood here. Game plan for the Lizardmen often revolves around a core of Temple Guard. They're tanky, heavily armored, and good against all targets with their armor-piercing halberds. The problem is, they have low melee attacks, so they don't cut through enemy foot troops very quickly. So just like you do in the Chaos matchup, you can build your entire army around a Light Slan with Birona's Time Warp. Net and Fuzz Protection are nice spells too, but the 24 melee attack boost turns Temple Guard into Blender Lords, which is exactly what you need to take on all comers. So best way to play it is to keep a tight, compact formation, wait for Glorious Battle to be joined, then drop a fat Overcast Time Warp on your front line for the bigger AoE. They'll chomp their way through pretty much anything, and then yeah, you can toss a few defensive spells their way and grind your way to victory. Solar Engine's a great unit here as well, great for sniping out infantry or regen monsters from long range. Falcon has 3 Temple Guards in the front ranks, couple Saurus, cohort of Sotek, and 3 Pterodon Riders on Overwatch, which is basically the Lizardmen version of Marauder Horsemen. They can fly and one-shot enemy skirmishers with rock drops from above. Really strong, but often overlooked unit because they just aren't that flashy. And of course, he also has a Carnosaur, whose job it is to hunt monsters and teach Norsca who the real apex predators are. On the flip side comes King of the Dead's Norsca, probably his main go-to faction outside the Tomb Kings. I'd say he's very likely one of the best Norscan players in the Warhammer 2 community, period. And his build has a lot of mass, as you'd expect when you're trying to pin down Slan and big dinos. Throgg leads Ice Trolls and a horde of Marauder champions here. He's going to try to outmuscle the frontline engagement. And the interesting thing about champions is that both variants are actually cheaper than Temple Guard and trade evenly with them. But they lack that versatility that comes with the halberd. So without any outside help, infantry fight will probably go the way of Norsca, or at least be cost efficient for them. And they've got javelins in the back to kill any of the big dinos and turn them into Boromir. Round it all out with a Metal Caster and some Warhounds, and you're good to go. So early sniping on the Norscan Ice Trolls, that's exactly what you would expect, and it's important for me to note that if you want to play this from the Lizardmen side, you really don't want to be investing heavily in dinos or cavalry. Norsca, as their trailer might suggest, is incredibly efficient at taking down the big stuff. You don't want to go like that. So the Temple Guard core, I think, is the right call, and he's getting very aggressive with the Pterodon Rider play early. Looks like he's trying to drop some rocks on the Marauder Hunters, and that is going to go very poorly. Bit uncharacteristic from Falcon. They won't lose a single model, but they're shattered and will not be returning to the fight. And the normal way to use them is to wait until the Javelins have committed to focus firing on a big target, like they're shooting up the Slan or the Ankylosaurus. Then the Pterodon Riders have free reign to swoop in and drop rocks on them, and they can easily finish off the rest in melee. And anything that routes off from the main battle, like trolls, just gets chased by them to the edge of the map. So incredibly versatile and mobile element. I think if Falcon could have that one back, he certainly would. He's going to lose a Pterodon Rider, but he still has 2 waiting on the wings, and they'll be looking for another better opportunity to strike. The Solar Engine is firing in on the Trolls, and it's already killed 2 or 3 models, which is pretty good. Obviously, it deals flaming damage. It's exactly what you want when sniping out big, ugly Trolls. And an Overcast Plague of Rust, minus 60 armor, taking the Temple Guard's armor value down to 25. Focus fire coming in on the Javelins. That's one way to get rid of the infantry threat. Of course, Temple Guard can deal with so much on that Norscan front line. Doing some damage to them early with skirmish play, pretty good idea. Nice shot coming in from the Solar Engine Bastillodon, taking out yet another Troll, and Marauder Champions engaging Saurus Spears on the flank. And Marauder Champions are not known for being able to cut their way quickly through enemy infantry, but they are very defensive. They do last a really long time, and they will beat the brakes off Saurus, especially when they're backed up by Norscan Ice Trolls. So that's a great engagement from King of the Dead, and they should be able to push through that flank pretty quickly with those 2 units fighting back to back. Now here we go. Birona's Time Warp in the center, giving them some additional speed. They're going up to 38 speed now, and they might be able to catch up to Marauder Champions who move at 35, but it's not a very big difference, and what you're going to see from King of the Dead is brilliant play, and it is something you should always try to emulate if you're in this kind of scenario. Why would you want to fight Temple Guard who have like 55 melee attack or 48 melee attack or whatever they get? Just run away. That's what he's going to do. He's going to completely deny the engagement. He's going to refuse the flank and say, I want no part of your Temple Guard. Leave me alone. And so he's just pulling away as this massive AoE spell is buffing up the Temple Guard. They're not getting a lot of value out of it because he's denying the engagement. It's perfect. You see that spell go off, maybe a little bit early from Falcon. You say, I'm out of here, boys. I'm gone. And run the hell away. Now, of course, Net of Ammontok is one way to make sure they fight. And that's a nice one from Falcon that will pin the trolls in place. Temple Guard are still buffed up, and you can see they're just lawn mowing, bulldozing their way through the ice trolls, and even the Lore of Metalcaster is probably not in an ideal spot. Pterodon Riders in the back, pinning down the skirmishers and the frontline engagement, so the Temple Guard and the cohort of Sotek can close the gap. And that was really well played from Falcon. He saw what King of the Dead was doing, and then said, okay, well, I can pin you in place as well. I have multiple ways to do it with flying skirmishers and with Net of Ammontok. Let's make sure you can't escape, and then drop a banishment on your head for good measure. Nice response from the Lizardmen. But there's a Carnosaur now dueling a Skinwolf Werekin with Ruinous Flesh and Throgg the Troll King. Probably not ideal. He's rampaging, cold-blooded, should be able to get him under control soon so he can think about moving away, and he probably will need to, even with the Slann nearby, even with the cohort of Sotek nearby. You don't want to be losing your dino that early, and Temple Guard on this side dealing with Marauder champions. Now, they should do well here. They are not going to be buffed up by Birona's Time Warp right away, and this is something that you really want to notice when you're playing as a Lizardman and going for a Birona's Time Warp type of build. You can see that when King of the Dead decided to refuse the fight, it spread out Falcon's formation. That's left him in a situation where he can't easily buff up his entire front line with the AoE spell from Birona's Time Warp. That is a problem. You want that plus 24 melee attack on all your Temple Guard, and if you aren't able to cast that on your entire front line, then you can be in a situation where the Norseans can pick you apart. With that said, great engagement here. Throgg is fully surrounded by Temple Guard. Werekin's fully surrounded by Temple Guard. And Throgg is somehow going to extricate himself from that situation and escape. That was pretty lucky. That could have ended horribly for Norsca. And I think if Throgg dies at this point in the battle, it would have just been game, set, match. It would have been over. But he routed instead. And that big bouncing belly of his gave him enough mass, I guess, to push his way out of what could have been a nightmare situation. And that is a gorgeous final transmutation overcast on the Slann, on the Carnosaurs, and some of the Temple Guard support. Cohort of Sotek caught in it too, and that bubble will help some. Bubble of Nope does give the ward save that helps against both magic attacks and against physical damage, but still, pretty brutal. Gonna deal a lot of damage to all of Falcon's most important troops. And a great fight here. Saurus have cold-blooded on them to try to keep them in the fight, give them a little bit more leadership. That is not going well. Pterodon Riders swooping down and eviscerating the Marauder Hunters with Javelin. Slann is still safe and doesn't look like they'll easily be able to close him down and finish him off. But this frontline engagement, Temple Guard are beginning to get worn down. Birona's Time Warp trying to blend through them, and it will help. They'll trade much better with that 50 melee attack, obviously. But the problem is, he's not catching a lot of infantry and not getting as much value inside the radius of that spell. You gotta be hitting more than one unit if you really want to get value out of Birona's Time Warp. Carnosaur is rampaged, and Banishment is trying to move them backwards so the Javelins can't focus fire on him. But you can see, they're doing a number on the big dino, and he's getting down real low. So is the Werekin. Both Throgg, the Werekin, and the Feral Carnosaur are all super low. Werekin might break off from this fight, but Bounce are starting to swing a little bit in the favor of Norsca. And I think that's where the brilliance of King of the Dead's play up to this point is pretty evident. It was a bait. It was a master bait to act like he wanted to play football and just slam his warriors into the Temple Guard from the word go. But those Norskins were crafty. They peeled off, forced the Temple Guard to give chase, and that has resulted in the exact situation that limits the effectiveness of a spell like Time Warp. A spread out battlefield where each element of the Lizardman force can be isolated and destroyed. With that said, Falcon is not out of this game, not by a long shot. Cohort of Sotek are chasing down the ice trolls and should be able to get them all the way to the edge of the map, but there's a clean shot for the Werekin to take, going straight at the Slann Mage Priest, and if that Slann dies, yeah, this will probably be game, set, match in Norsca's favor. Werekin, Air Werekin coming in with the Jordan Slam from the free throw line, but the Bastiladon says, you know what, my name's Ray Lewis. Get off my QB. Peace. And just blocks him out of the next dimension. I guess it'd be more like Joe Thomas or someone, not Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis is a linebacker. You guys don't care. Most of you probably don't watch football. We got a bubble of note coming down, and Lizardmen are finally getting their stuff together, protecting their Slaanesh, collapsing in and around, and trying to get these great engagements on Throgg, who's surrounded by Temple Guard. If they kill him here, it could be a big loss for Norsca, but Werkin might have gotten knocked about 30 feet the other way, but he's coming in from behind now. He's getting spit roasted, and that will be a dead Slaanesh Mage Priest. Toilet seat is donezo. Throgg and the Werkin took a dookie on the Slaanesh and just straight up flushed him. And that might just seal the deal for Norsca's win here. Solar Engine is forced to engage in melee. There are some terror routes kicking in, but with only the cohort of Sotek and that Ankylosaurus left, and the fact that both Throgg and the Werkin are still alive and still regenning, it's looking like King of the Dead might be able to pull this one out. Barely, but he will be able to do so. It will be a concession from Falcon in a handful of seconds here, and that will be your battle. So, big thing to think about in that one, and what was most impressive to me was King of the Dead's ability to deny the fight. He saw that Falcon wanted to just run in a tight, compact formation, and King of the Dead just straight up denied it. He said, no, I want no part of it. I'm going to run away and wait till that spell wears off. Falcon responded really well with the Net of Ammontok and with the Pterodon Riders coming in from behind to pin them in place, but he wasn't able to hit every single element of that barbarian front line, and because he wasn't able to, that meant that the battlefield just started getting spread out more and more. And so Overcast Birona's Time Warp is relatively useless when you can only hit one unit. I mean, yes, you want Temple Guard to win whatever they're fighting against, but at the end of the day, the benefit of that spell, the reason you bring it is so you can hit 3 or 4 Temple Guard, 3 or 4 Saurus units at once, and allow your entire force to reap the benefits of that spell. The most important thing for a Lizardman player to do in that situation is to keep it high and tight. If you waste a Birona's Time Warp, it's not the end of the world. It is much better to present a unified front and form a ring of Obsidian and Saurus around your Slaanesh than to over-pursue and get caught out and picked apart unit by unit. And one of the major advantages of being patient there is the Javelins will want to come in and shoot up your Slaanesh or shoot your Dinos at the heart of your formation. And then when they do that, the Pterodon Riders can swoop in from the skies and drop rocks to kill off the skirmish play. It'll all set up another Time Warp when it comes off cooldown. It'll set up the Bubble of Nope ward save, so multiple units benefit and get the effects all at once, and then you can ride that to victory in a grinded out melee fest. Great play from both players, very interesting chess match, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one, guys.